Alright, this is the second video on the 1970s Nixon. This is now women and African Americans in the 1970s, alright? First off, if you look around our high school, you'll see that there are female athletes. There are female basketball players and softball players and volleyball players and soccer players, and there's other ones I'm leaving out, I'm sorry. But why does this happen? 1972, there was an Educational Act passed, and it's called Title IX. Title IX basically says no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. The big thing it does is it sets up high school and college sports. And without this, many women wouldn't be able to go to college. A lot of women play sports and get scholarships, and it pays for their degree. Now, there's still not a lot of professional programs. There is the WNBA, but no real major softball league, a few minor kind of soccer teams, but volleyball, the same deal. But if you have a male sport, you must provide an equal counterpart or some type of activity for women to participate at the same time. Okay, football and volleyball are going at the same time, both basketballs, both baseballs, softball, and both soccers kind of happen simultaneously. This is why, okay? Now, another big thing that happens in 1970 is a massive court case called Roe v. Wade. Now, first off, this is kind of cool, and maybe the only cool thing about this that's not highly controversial or picking a side. Who's Miss Roe? Miss Roe is a typo. It was supposed to be Jane Doe. She didn't want to use her name. They saw it as Roe, and so they put it as Roe. Anyway, Roe v. Wade is about abortion, all right? And this has been a major kind of split in our society. You have the pro-life ones who say, stop abortion now, and you have the pro-choice ones saying keep it legal. Planned Parenthood is on the pro-choice side, and their support funding these abortion clinics. Okay? Now, what they ultimately decided in Roe v. Wade is that it belongs to a woman's right to privacy about abortion. It is her decision. It is her choice. So they're actually pro-choice at this point. However, there's not a lot of guidelines as to when an abortion can be administered, we'll call it, okay? Can it happen in the first trimester or second trimester or third trimester? And that's kind of proceeded along with time. But this is a massively big split. And many people in this country are pro-choice. Many people in this country are pro-life. And they do not see eye to eye about this. And until the Supreme Court makes a 100% decision, as in, yes, here is abortion, it is legal up to X number of things and provided X number of things, this divide will not heal, all right? Now, also in the 1970s, we have the 26th Amendment. The 26th Amendment is passed because of Vietnam, and this will lower the voting age from 21 to 18. A major thing they said in Vietnam was we're old enough to fight, not old enough to vote. And so that's an interesting thing. But we only have one amendment left after this, right? Now, Nixon has to fight a horrible animal, and it's called stagflation. Stagflation is the combination of inflated prices, an inflated economy, with a stagnant workforce. In other words, prices are high, there's no jobs being created, it's stagnant, it's not moving, it's kind of starting to stink. How do we combat this? And he can't solve it, Ford can't solve it, Carter can't solve it, ultimately Reagan solves it somewhat, but it does exist, alright? Now, as I also said, 1970s was the age of disco, the big parties and the clothing, etc. We had several big places that start popping up, Club 55 and things like that, to promote this, all right? So I just bring that up there. Now, on to African Americans. Uh, Johnson, and I haven't talked about this with you yet, President Johnson is going to basically, and Kennedy as well, Kennedy really did it, is going to set up something called equal employment opportunity, etc. And it sets up an idea of what we call affirmative action. Now, affirmative action is giving minorities maybe preferential treatment, if you want to call it that, but kind of putting them and taking into account what they've been through when you are hiring. The first plan in which we use affirmative action is called the Philadelphia Plan. How we're going to use affirmative action to create more jobs for the African American and the minority people, and it is signed by Nixon. So now the other thing Nixon does is to achieve integration. He is going to support school busing. Now, this does not mean what school bus, but this is actually bringing in African Americans from further districts to achieve a racial quota so he could meet his affirmative action plan so people could get federal money. Now, a lot of people start getting upset with this because once we start using racial quotas, we're not worried about the content of their character. We're worried about the color of their skins. Going back to Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech, okay? And we're going to see how this kind of really takes fruition when we get into civil rights. We're going to talk about all this stuff again. I'm just giving it to you in the context that we are here, all right? One more video about Nixon, and it's about Watergate, and that's the one everybody wants to see.